The Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 years. In all that time, they had seen many species join their ranks. They had watched civilizations rise and fall. They had created laws that governed trade across 10,000 worlds. They had solved problems that would have destroyed lesser empires. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared them for humanity. Ambassador Zyxthal of the Velthari stood at the viewing window of the council station. His 4 eyes blinked in different patterns as he watched the human delegation's ship approach. The vessel was painted in bright colors. Red and blue and yellow swirled across its hull in patterns that served no purpose at all. "Why do they do that?" asked his assistant, a young Velthari named Kriltesh. "We do not know," Zyxthal admitted. "When we asked, they said it looked cool." "Cool? The temperature is regulated." "It does not mean temperature, it means pleasing, attractive, good." Kriltash's mandibles clicked in confusion. They change words to mean different things. "Yes, they do that often." The human ship docked with a slight wobble. This was not because of poor piloting. The humans had explained that a perfect dock was boring. They liked to add what they called flair. Zyxthal had given up trying to understand this. The airlock opened and the human ambassador stepped out. Her name was Sarah Chen and she wore clothing that did not match. Her jacket was green. Her pants were purple. Her shoes were orange with small white dots. Every other species in the galaxy wore clothing that served function, protective gear, diplomatic robes in standard colors, uniforms that showed rank and purpose. Humans wore whatever they felt like wearing. "Ambassador Zyxthal," Sarah called out, waving her hand in the air. This gesture meant greeting, or celebration, or calling attention, or several other things depending on context. "So good to see you. Love what you've done with the place." Zyxthal looked around the docking bay. Nothing had been done with the place. It was the same as it had been for 300 years. "Thank you," he said, uncertain. "Oh, you know what this station needs. Plants. Big green plants everywhere. Maybe some fountains and music. Why is it so quiet in here?" "Sound serves no purpose in a docking bay." "Purpose? That's the problem with you guys. Everything has to have a purpose." Sarah walked beside him, her orange shoes making strange squeaking sounds on the metal floor. "Sometimes things are just nice to have. Pretty things, fun things." "Fun," Zyxthal repeated. The word had no direct translation in his language. The Velthari had concepts for satisfaction, for the completion of tasks, for rest. But fun, as humans meant it, did not exist. They walked through the corridors toward the council chamber. Along the way, they passed members of other species. The Korathi, a silicon-based species that communicated through vibrations, moved aside for them. The Mielvek, tall beings with skin like flowing water, nodded their featureless heads. The Droxian hive mind representatives skittered past on their many legs. All of them stopped to stare at Sarah Chen. It was not just her clothing. It was everything about her. The way she walked with a slight bounce in her step. The way she hummed a tune under her breath. The way she smiled at everyone she passed, even species that did not have faces. "She's doing it again," a Korathi vibrated to its companion. "The face-stretching thing." "Yes, what does it mean?" "We asked once. They said it means they are happy." "They show happiness, openly to strangers." "Yes." The Korathi vibrated with something like horror. Emotions were private things, sacred things. To display them so freely was considered deeply inappropriate by most galactic species, but humans did not seem to care. They laughed out loud. They cried in public. They hugged each other, pressing their bodies together in ways that would be considered assault in most cultures. And they made things. This was the true problem. This was what had brought the council to the edge of crisis. Humans made things that served no purpose. They painted pictures that showed scenes that did not exist. They wrote stories about events that never happened. They created music, sounds arranged in patterns that triggered emotional responses. They called this creativity. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. The council chamber was a vast circular room. Representatives from the 50 founding species sat in rising tiers around a central speaking platform. The room was designed for efficiency, perfect acoustics, ideal lighting, temperature and atmosphere controlled to accommodate all species present. But today, something was different. In the center of the room, where the speaking platform usually stood empty, there was a structure. It was made of metal and glass and light. It twisted and turned in ways that seemed impossible. Colors shifted across its surface. Sounds emerged from within it, soft and strange and beautiful. "What is this?" demanded High Counselor Vreneth of the Mielvak. His liquid form rippled with agitation. Sarah Chen stepped forward, still smiling. "It's a gift. We made it for you. We call it a sculpture." "What does it do?" It doesn't do anything. You look at it. You experience it. It makes you feel things." Silence fell over the chamber. 50 species tried to process this information. A thing that did nothing. A thing that existed only to be observed. A thing created purely to trigger emotions. "This is madness," said Counselor Braktha of the Droxian hive mind. "Resources were spent creating this. Time was invested. Energy was consumed. And it serves no practical function." "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds silly," Sarah admitted. "But that's kind of the point. Not everything has to be practical. Sometimes you just want to make something beautiful." "Beautiful," Braktha repeated. The word existed in their language, but only as it related to efficient design. A beautiful engine was one that wasted no energy. A beautiful hive was one that maximized space. This was something else entirely. Ambassador Zeichthal stepped forward. "Counselors, I have studied the humans extensively. I believe I can explain what is happening." "Please do," Vreneth said, "because we do not understand." Zeichthal activated a display. Images appeared in the air above the council. Human cities with buildings in different shapes and colors. Human clothing with patterns that served no purpose. Human food arranged to please the eye before it pleased the stomach. Human vehicles painted and decorated. Human bodies covered in permanent markings called tattoos. "Humans," Zeichthal said, "have a unique relationship with existence. They are aware, as we all are, that their lives are finite, that the universe is vast and uncaring, that in the grand scheme of things, individual lives matter very little." The counselors nodded. This was understood by all species. It was why efficiency was valued, why practical concerns dominated, why wasting resources on frivolous things was considered foolish. "But humans," Zeichthal continued, "responded to this knowledge differently than any other species we have encountered. Instead of focusing purely on survival and efficiency, they decided to find meaning in other ways. They create. They imagine. They make things that exist purely because they wanted to make them." He pointed at the sculpture in the center of the room. "This serves no practical purpose, but its creation made the humans who built it happy. Looking at it may make others happy. The act of making it was meaningful to them." "But why?" Braktha asked. "We do not understand why." Sarah Chen laughed. It was a strange sound, bright and sudden. Several species flinched. "That's the best part," she said. "We don't really understand why either. We just know it feels right. When we create something new, something that never existed before, it feels like we're adding to the universe. Like we're saying, I was here and I made this." The council chamber fell silent again. This was going to be a problem. A very, very big problem. Because humans were not content to keep their creativity to themselves. They wanted to share it. And once shared, creativity had a way of spreading. 3 months after the humans joined the Galactic Council, the first incident occurred. A young Korathi named Thresh had been assigned to the human trade delegation. Her job was to monitor the exchange of goods and services, to ensure all transactions were fair and legal. But something had gone wrong. Thresh had started spending her free time with the human traders. She had watched them draw pictures on scraps of paper. She had listened to them sing songs. She had eaten their strangely prepared food, which they had arranged on plates in ways that served no nutritional purpose. And then she had done something terrible. She had created something. It was small, just a piece of metal bent into a shape. The shape looked like a stellar formation that Thresh found pleasing. She had made it during her rest period, using materials that were technically waste products, but she had made it. When she showed it to her hive mind, the response was immediate panic. "You created something without purpose," the hive mind said through their shared connection. "This is contamination. This is infection. The humans have infected you." Thresh tried to explain. She tried to say that it had felt good, that the act of making something had brought her satisfaction in a way that completing assigned tasks never had. But the hive mind would not listen. "You will report to the medical facility. You will be examined. This aberrant behavior will be corrected." But Thresh did not want to be corrected. She wanted to make more things. She wanted to feel that strange, wonderful feeling again. So she did something that Korathi never did. She ran. She found Sarah Chen in the human section of the station. The ambassador was sitting in a room filled with colorful objects, plants and pictures and soft things to sit on. Music played softly in the background. "Help me," Thresh said. "They want to fix me, but I do not want to be fixed." Sarah looked at the bent piece of metal in Thresh's appendages. Her face did the stretching thing, smiling. "You made this." "Yes, is it wrong?" "It's beautiful," Sarah said. "And no, it's not wrong. It's the most right thing I've seen since we got here." Word spread. Other Korathi learned what Thresh had done. Most were horrified, but some were curious. A few were envious. They wanted to know what it felt like. They wanted to try. The Korathi government demanded that the humans leave the station. They accused humanity of spreading dangerous ideas. They called creativity a disease, a corruption of natural thought processes. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. "This is exactly what we feared," Councillor Braktha said. "The humans are changing us. They are altering the fundamental nature of our species. This cannot be allowed to continue." But Councillor Vreeneth raised a liquid appendage. "Wait, I have been thinking about this. I have been thinking about it for many days, and I have a question." "Ask," the High Council said. "Why do we fear change? We have existed in our current form for 10,000 years. We have grown. We have expanded. But have we improved? Have we found new ways of being? Or have we simply done the same things in the same ways forever?" The chamber was silent. "I watched the recordings of the Korathi who created the metal sculpture," Vreeneth continued. "I watched her face. I watched her movements. She was happy, not satisfied as one is when a task is completed. Happy in a way I do not think I have ever been. Do we not want that for ourselves?" "Happiness without purpose is meaningless," Braktha said. "Is it? Or have we simply told ourselves that because we did not know another way?" Sarah Chen stood. "May I speak?" The council granted permission. "Where we come from," Sarah said, "we have a saying. Life is short. It's true for all of us, isn't it? Even the longest-lived species in this room will eventually end. The universe will keep going and we will be gone." She walked toward the center of the chamber, toward the sculpture that still stood there. For a long time this terrified us. We tried to find meaning in survival, in reproduction, in building empires. And those things are important, they are, but they weren't enough. We still felt empty. We still felt like our lives didn't matter. She touched the sculpture. Colors rippled under her hand. Then we discovered creativity, the ability to make something new, something that had never existed before, something that might outlast us or might not, but that mattered because we made it, because we chose to make it, because in a universe that doesn't care about us, we cared about ourselves enough to create. She turned to face the council. I know it seems strange. I know it seems wasteful, but it saved us. It gave us a reason to keep going when logic said there was no reason, and maybe it can save you too." Ambassador Zeichsthal had been watching quietly. Now he spoke. "I have been studying human history. They nearly destroyed themselves many times. Wars, environmental damage, plagues, but they always recovered. They always found a way forward, and I believe creativity is why." "Explain," the council demanded. "When humans face a problem, they do not simply apply known solutions. They imagine new ones. They think of things that have never been thought before. They create possibilities where none existed. This is why they adapted to space travel so quickly, why they developed technologies we had not considered, why they are always surprising us." He paused. "Creativity is not just making sculptures and paintings. It is a way of thinking, a way of approaching existence, and it is powerful, perhaps the most powerful thing we have ever encountered." The council debated for many days. The humans were not expelled. Instead, a compromise was reached. Humanity would be allowed to share their creativity, but only with those who chose to receive it. No forcing, no pressure, only invitation. But it was already too late for restrictions. The idea had spread. The Korathi who had created the metal sculpture had inspired others. The Mielvek had begun experimenting with their liquid forms, shaping themselves into patterns that served no purpose but beauty. Even the stern Velthari had started to change. Zeichsthal himself had tried to write a poem. It was terrible, but he had enjoyed making it. The galaxy would never be the same. 10 years passed. The changes spread faster than anyone had predicted. The Droxian hive mind, once the most rigid of all species, had fractured, not into chaos but into something new. Individual Droxians had begun to develop their own preferences, their own tastes. They still worked together, still shared thoughts and resources, but now they also had private spaces in their minds, places where they could think their own thoughts, feel their own feelings, create their own creations. The first Droxian art exhibition drew visitors from across the galaxy. The works were strange. Sculptures made of living tissue that pulsed and grew. Paintings created by thousands of individual Droxians working together, each adding their own small contribution. Music played by the vibration of countless legs, harmonizing in ways that had never been heard before. Sarah Chen attended the opening. She was older now, her hair showing streaks of gray, but her smile was the same. "It's beautiful," she said to the Droxian artist beside her. "We do not understand beautiful," the Droxian replied, "but we understand necessary. This was necessary." "Necessary, but I thought you said art serves no purpose." "We were wrong. Purpose is not only about survival. Purpose is about meaning, and this has meaning. We feel it." Across the station, a group of young Velthari were learning to dance. Their forelegs moved in patterns that served no practical function. They stumbled and fell and got up again. They laughed, a sound that their species had not made in generations. Their teacher was a human named Marco, a professional dancer from Earth. He had come to the station 5 years ago, expecting to find no interest in his art. He had been wrong. "Feel the rhythm," he told his students. "Don't think about it, just feel." "We do not feel rhythm," one student protested. "Our hearing is not designed for it." "Then feel it with your body. Feel the vibrations through the floor. Feel the movement of the air. Rhythm is everywhere. You just have to learn to notice it." The student tried again. This time something changed. Their movements became smoother, more fluid, more alive. "There," Marco shouted. "That's it, you're dancing." The student looked at their own moving body in wonder. I have no word for what this is." "Joy," Marco said. "The word you're looking for is joy." Not everyone was happy about the changes. The Council of Purity had formed 3 years after humanity's arrival. It included members from species who saw creativity as a threat. They believed that the old ways were better, that efficiency and purpose should be the only values, that this new obsession with art and expression was a disease that would destroy galactic civilization. Their leader was a Korathi named Vexter. Unlike Thresh, who had embraced creativity, Vexter rejected it completely. He saw what was happening to his species and felt only horror. "We are losing ourselves," he told his followers. "Our identity is being erased, our traditions are being forgotten. And for what? For pretty pictures, for pleasant sounds. This is not progress, this is destruction." His followers agreed. They began to act. First, they destroyed the great sculpture in the council chamber. They waited until the station's night cycle, when few beings were awake. They used acid and cutting tools. By morning, the beautiful, impossible creation was nothing but twisted metal and shattered glass. Sarah Chen wept when she saw it. "Why?" she asked Vexter, who had been captured shortly after the attack. "It wasn't hurting anyone." "It was hurting everyone," Vexter replied. "It was changing us, making us forget who we are." But change isn't always bad. Sometimes it's necessary. And sometimes it is death. You humans think you are bringing us gifts, but you are bringing us poison. Slow poison that tastes sweet. And by the time we realize what has happened, it will be too late. The council debated what to do. Some wanted to punish the Council of Purity severely. Others wanted to listen to their concerns. A few even suggested that humanity should leave, that the experiment had failed. But Ambassador Zeichthal stood before them with a proposal. "Let us build something new," he said, "not to replace what was lost, but to prove that destruction cannot stop creation. Let all species who wish to participate contribute. Let us make something together, something that represents what we have become." The project took 2 years. Thousands of beings from dozens of species worked on it. They argued and debated and sometimes fought, but they also learned from each other. They shared techniques and ideas and dreams. When it was finished, the new sculpture stood at the center of the station. It was larger than the original, more complex, more beautiful, and it was different because it had been created by many minds, not just human ones. The Droxians had contributed living elements that changed and grew. The Mielvek had added flowing water that defied gravity. The Velthari had built a framework of mathematical precision. The Korathi had created vibration patterns that filled the air with subtle music. And the humans had tied it all together. They had seen how the pieces could fit. They had imagined what the whole could be. Vexter was brought to see it. He was a prisoner now, awaiting judgment for his crimes. But the council wanted him to see what they had made. He stood before the sculpture for a long time. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of intense emotion in his species. "I do not understand," he finally said. "I do not understand how you can look at this and not be afraid." Sarah Chen stood beside him. "We are afraid," she admitted. "All the time. That's the secret no one tells you about creativity. It's terrifying. Every time you make something, you're putting a piece of yourself out into the universe. You're saying, this is what I think, this is what I feel, judge me. And it's scary." "Then why do it?" "Because being afraid is better than being empty. Because making things is better than making nothing. Because at the end of my life, I want to be able to say I added something to the universe, not just took from it." Vexter was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound that no Korathi had made in recorded history, a sound of grief, of loss, of longing. "I wish I could see it," he said. "The way you see it, but I cannot. I look at this and I see only waste, only chaos, only the death of everything I knew." "Maybe that's okay," Sarah said. "Not everyone has to create, not everyone has to understand, but please let others try. Let them find their own answers." Vexter did not respond. He was taken back to his cell. The council would judge him in the morning. But that night, something strange happened. The guards found him in his cell, surrounded by scraps of material he had gathered from his meals and his bedding. He had been making something, a small thing, a shape that looked like a stellar formation. "What is this?" the guards asked. Vexter looked at his creation with horror and wonder. "I do not know," he said. "I do not know why I made it, but I could not stop." The galaxy watched and waited. Something was changing, something fundamental, something that could not be stopped. And humanity smiled, because they had known this would happen. They had known from the beginning. Creativity was not a gift that could be given. It was a fire that burned in every thinking being. It just needed a spark to ignite. And now the galaxy was burning. 50 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. In that time, everything had changed. The station where the council met was unrecognizable. Where once there had been bare metal walls and functional corridors, now there were gardens and galleries. Every surface told a story. Every space invited wonder. Different species had contributed their own visions, creating a patchwork of beauty that somehow worked together. Ambassador Chen had retired years ago. She lived on a small moon near the station, where she spent her days painting landscapes that existed only in her imagination. She was very old now, her hands not as steady as they once were, but she still created something every day. Her successor was a young man named James Okonkwo. He had grown up on the station, raised among a dozen different species. He spoke 6 languages fluently and understood a dozen more. He could appreciate Droxian body art and Mielvac flow sculpture and Velthari mathematical music. He was, in many ways, a child of the new galaxy. "The council has requested your presence," his assistant said. She was a Korathi named Thresh II, named after the famous artist who had started everything. "What about?" "The Void Singers." James nodded. He had known this was coming. The Void Singers were a species from the far edge of the galaxy. They had made contact 5 years ago, when their exploration ships had first encountered galactic civilization. They were ancient, older even than the Council. Their technology was advanced beyond anything the other species possessed. And they did not create. Not because they could not because they did not understand, but because they had chosen not to. Long ago, in their distant past, they had faced the same question that all species faced. What is the purpose of existence? How do we find meaning in a universe that does not care? They had chosen a different answer. The Void Singers believed that creation was arrogant, that making new things was an attempt to impose order on chaos, that the only proper response to existence was acceptance. Observation. The Void Singers watched. They recorded. They preserved. But they did not add. For millions of years this had worked. Their civilization was stable. Their population was steady. Their technology advanced slowly but surely. They were, by any measure, successful. But now they had encountered the creative galaxy, and they were horrified. "You have corrupted them all," the Void Singer ambassador said. Its body was thin and pale, almost translucent. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Every species you have touched has been changed. They no longer observe. They intervene. They create. They impose their visions on reality." James stood before the council, facing the ambassador. "We did not corrupt anyone. We shared an idea. They chose to accept it." "Choice? You speak of choice as if it means something, but you removed their choice. Before you came, they were content. They lived as they had always lived. Now they are never satisfied. They always want more. They always want to make more. This is not freedom. This is addiction." The council chamber was silent. Many of the species present remembered what they had been before: practical, efficient, content with mere existence. Now they were different. Now they dreamed. Now they created. Now they were never quite satisfied with what they had. Was this better or worse? An old Velthari stepped forward. It was Kriltash, who had once asked Ambassador Zyxthal why humans painted their ships. He was ancient now, his 4 eyes dim with age, but his mind was still sharp. "I remember the time before," he said. "I remember what we were, And I tell you this, I would not go back, not for anything." The Void Singer ambassador turned to face him. "Why? What have you gained that is worth so much?" "Purpose," Kriltash said. "Real purpose. Not just the purpose of survival, of continuing to exist for the sake of existing, but the purpose of making something that matters, something that will outlast me, something that says I was here." He gestured to the council chamber, to the decorations and sculptures and gardens that filled it. "All of this will be destroyed someday. We know that. The universe will end and everything we have made will be forgotten, but that does not make it meaningless. The making mattered. The experience mattered. The joy and the struggle and the triumph and the failure, they all mattered." The Void Singer was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was different, softer, uncertain. "We have watched the universe for 60 million years. We have recorded everything we have seen, every star that has formed, every civilization that has risen and fallen, every moment of existence that we have witnessed." It paused. "But we have not lived. We have only watched. And now, seeing what you have become, what you are still becoming, I begin to wonder, have we wasted our time?" James Okonkwo stepped forward. "It's not too late, it's never too late. You can still create. You can still add your voice to the song. We do not know how. We have forgotten if we ever knew. Then let us teach you. Not our way, but your way. Every species creates differently. The Droxians make living art. The Mealvacs shape water and light. The Velthari compose mathematical symphonies. You have watched the universe for 60 million years. What have you seen that you wanted to share?" The Void Singer was still for a very long time. The council waited. Then slowly it began to speak. But it was not words. It was something else. A pattern of sounds and silences. A rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. Images formed in the air around it, projected by technology so advanced that it seemed like magic. Images of stars being born and dying, of galaxies colliding and merging, of life arising and spreading across the void. It was a song that contained 60 million years of observation, a song that shared everything the Void Singers had witnessed, a song that was, finally, after all that time, a creation. When it ended, the council chamber was filled with tears and trembling and wonder. Every species present had been moved. Every being had felt something profound. Ambassador Okonkwo wiped his eyes. "That was beautiful," he said. "That was the most beautiful thing I have ever experienced." The Void Singer looked at him. Something had changed in its ancient eyes. Something new, something alive. "I understand now," it said. "I understand why you create. It is not arrogance. It is love. Love for existence itself. Love strong enough that you want to give something back." It turned to face the council. "I must return to my people. I must tell them what I have learned. I do not know if they will listen. We are very old, very set in our ways, but I must try. Because now that I have created something, I cannot stop. I do not want to stop." James nodded. "That's how it works. Once you start, there's no going back, but trust me, it's worth it." The Void Singer departed. The council watched it go. A Mealvac counselor spoke. "Do you think they will change?" "I don't know," James admitted. "But I hope so. 60 million years of watching the universe. Can you imagine what they will create if they start to participate?" Sarah Chen, watching through a video link from her moon, laughed. It was a quiet laugh, weak with age, but it was still full of joy. "The galaxy will never recover," she said. And she was right. 100 years after humanity joined the Galactic Council, the universe was transformed. The Void Singers had changed. It had taken decades, but the song that their ambassador had sung had spread through their entire civilization. Now they created constantly. Their art was unlike anything else in the galaxy. It captured the long view, the perspective of beings who had watched the universe for ages. It was vast and slow and patient, and it was heartbreakingly beautiful. New species had joined the council. species that had learned about creativity from the galactic broadcasts, species that had developed their own forms of expression, species that added new colors to the ever-growing tapestry of galactic culture. The old fears had faded. The Council of Purity had dissolved decades ago. Its last members had come to see that creativity was not destruction but transformation, that change was not death but growth, that the galaxy they had feared losing had not been lost, it had been improved. Ambassador James Okonkwo had passed away 10 years ago. His memorial service had been attended by beings from every corner of the galaxy. They had come to honor the man who had helped bridge the gap between humanity and the Void Singers, who had spoken of purpose and meaning and joy, who had lived his life creating connections between species that had never imagined they could understand each other. His successor was a young Droxian named Unity of Many Songs. It was the first non-human to serve as humanity's ambassador to the Council. This had been controversial at first. How could an alien represent humanity? But Unity understood. They had grown up in a galaxy shaped by human creativity. They had learned to dream and imagine and create from human teachers. In a way, they were as human as anyone born on Earth. Humanity is not just a species, Unity told the Council at their inauguration. It is an idea, an approach to existence, a way of being in the universe, and that idea belongs to everyone now. On Earth, things had changed too. The planet that had once nearly destroyed itself with wars and pollution was now a garden, a work of art on a planetary scale. Every city was a sculpture, every forest was a symphony, every ocean was a canvas. Humans had not done this alone. Species from across the galaxy had come to contribute. They had brought their own visions, their own dreams, their own forms of creativity. Together, they had made Earth into something unprecedented, a world that was entirely, intentionally beautiful. And from Earth, new waves of creativity spread outward. Human explorers had reached the edges of the known universe. They had found new species, new civilizations, new ways of being, and everywhere they went, they brought the spark. The idea that existence could be more than survival, that meaning could be created, not just discovered, that the universe, for all its vastness and indifference, could be made better by the beings who lived in it. Not everyone had accepted the gift. Some species had rejected creativity entirely. They had chosen to remain as they were, practical and efficient and unchanged. The galactic community respected this choice. Creativity could not be forced. It had to be embraced freely. But those species were few. Most had seen what was possible and had wanted to participate, had wanted to add their voices to the ever-growing song. And the song was magnificent. On the anniversary of humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, a celebration was held. Every species that had embraced creativity participated. They shared their art, their music, their stories, their dreams. They showed the universe what they had become. The celebration lasted for a month. Every day brought new wonders, new forms of expression that had never existed before, new connections between species that had once been strangers, new possibilities for what the future might hold. At the center of it all stood a monument. It had been built by the descendants of those first human explorers, working alongside members of every species in the galaxy. It was enormous, visible from orbit. It changed constantly, its form shifting to reflect the creative works being shared around it. At its base was an inscription. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of a century of change. In a universe that does not care, we chose to care. In a cosmos without meaning, we chose to create meaning. In a galaxy of strangers, we chose to become friends. This is what we are. This is what we can be. This is what we will always strive to become. On her moon, in a small room filled with paintings, a very old woman smiled. Sarah Chen was nearly 200 years old now, kept alive by medical technology that had seemed like magic when she was young. Her hands could no longer hold a brush. Her eyes could barely see. But her mind was still sharp, still full of dreams and ideas and visions. She watched the celebration through her window, the lights visible even from her distant moon. She saw what humanity had started, what they had helped create, what they had given to the galaxy. And she knew it was just the beginning. Because that was the thing about creativity. It never ended. It just kept growing, kept spreading, kept changing. Every act of creation inspired new acts of creation. Every dream sparked new dreams. Every song led to new songs. The galaxy would never recover from humanity's arrival, but that was okay. Recovery implied returning to what was before, and what was before had been good, maybe even great. But what came after was better. Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about the first sculpture she had brought to the council all those years ago. The one that had been destroyed, then rebuilt, then transformed into something beyond imagination. "We did good," she whispered to no one in particular. "We did really good." And somewhere out in the vast, creative, ever-changing galaxy, a billion beings agreed. The universe had not changed. It was still vast, still ancient, still fundamentally indifferent to the beings who lived within it. But the beings had changed. They had found meaning. They had found purpose. They had found each other. And they had discovered that in a cosmos of infinite darkness, they could be the light. Not because it was practical, not because it was efficient, not because it served any purpose that could be measured or quantified, but because it was beautiful. And sometimes beauty was enough. The celebration continued. The music played, the art was shared, the stories were told. And humanity, that strange, impossible, creative species, watched with pride. They had given the galaxy a gift, the gift of imagination, the gift of expression, the gift of creativity. The galaxy had accepted, the galaxy had embraced, the galaxy had transformed. And the galaxy would never be the same again. This was humanity's legacy, not conquest, not empire, not power. Just a simple idea, that existence can be more than mere survival. Just a simple truth, that making things is its own reward. Just a simple hope, that the universe can be made beautiful. And in the end, that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.